ரசிகர்களுக்கு வணக்கம். முத்ரா அமைப்பானது கிட்டத்தட்ட கொரோனாவுக்கு முன்னாடியே எனக்கு தெரிஞ்ச வரைக்கும் இந்த வெப்காஸ்ட்டு அவங்க ஆரம்பித்தாங்க. பின்னாடி இது தேவை வரும்னு சொல்லிட்டு செஞ்சுருக்கார் அவர். ஏன்னா எனக்கு முதல் வருஷத்துலேருந்து இது 30வது வருஷம். 30 வருஷன்றது ஒரு தலைமுறைன்னு சொல்லலாம். இப்போ அடுத்த தலைமுறைக்கு ஏற்கனவே மாற ஆரம்பிச்சார், அவர் மாறின்னு இருக்காருன்னு சொல்லணும். அதை நல்ல வரவேற்பு இருக்குது. காலம்பரம் எழுந்த உடனே கர்நாடக இசை ஏதாவது 1/2 மணி நேரம் கேட்கணுன்னு எல்லோரும் ஆசைப்படுவாங்க. அந்த மாதிரி வசதிகள்லாம் இப்போ அந்த காலத்தில் பண்ணி வச்சுருந்தாங்க. இப்போது நீங்கள் ஒரு ஹாலுன்னு வச்சுங்க, 500 பேர் உட்காரலாம், இல்லை 500 பேர் கேட்க முடியும். இப்போது இவருடைய பாஸ்கர், அங்கே திருமதி பாஸ்கர் எடுத்த முயற்சியில் உலகம் பூராவும் பார்க்க முடியுது. லைவாக பார்க்கணுன்னா இந்தியாவில் உள்ளவங்களும் அந்த டைம் அட்ஜஸ்ட் ஆகிட்டு பார்க்கலாம். வெளிநாட்டு உள்ளவங்க அந்த இதை பின்னாடி அப்போ யூடியூப்பில் கொண்டு வர்றாருன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். அதை அப்படி அவங்க சௌகரியப்பட்ட டயத்தில் கேட்டுக்கலாம். ஏன்னா கிட்டத்தட்ட ஒவ்வொரு வருஷமும் 12 லட்சம் வியூவர்ஸை அதை பார்க்குறாங்க. இது வரைக்கும் 7.1 மில்லியன் ரசிகர்கள் பார்த்துருக்காங்க. அதாவது அவர் முயற்சிக்கு உண்டான பலன் கிடச்சிருக்குன்னு தான் நான் சொல்லணும்னு நினைக்கிறேன். இன்னும் பல பேருக்கு போய் சேரணும். எல்லோரும் டிசம்பரில் சென்னைக்கு கச்சேரி கேட்டு போக முடியாது, சாத்தியம் இல்லாத விஷயம். ஒரு சிலர் தான் வர முடியுது. இப்போ ஏகப்பட்டது ஃப்ளைட் சார்ஜர் ஏற்றிட்டாங்க. அதனால் அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கும்போது இந்த வெப்காஸ்ட் தான் அவங்களுக்கு கச்சேரி பார்க்கக்கூடிய ஏன்னா நிஜமாகவே அந்த ஒரு சவால் நடக்கிற மாதிரி எடுத்து அதை, ஏன்னா அவர் 2 உருவத்தில் பாராட்டினோம். அவர் சங்கீத நுட்களும் தெரிஞ்சிருக்கு, இந்த மாதிரி மாடர்னாக இதெல்லாம் எப்படி பண்ண முடியுது இதுவும் அவருக்கு தெரிஞ்சிருக்கு. அதனால் ரொம்ப சிறப்பாக செயல்பட்டு வரார். அவருக்கு என் மனப்பூர்வமான வாழ்த்துக்கள். இவருடைய முயற்சி இந்த காலத்துக்கு ஒட்டின மாதிரி இருக்குது. இப்போது ஒரு காலத்தில் டைம் வேஸ்ட்டுன்னே நினைக்க மாட்டாங்க. ஒரு கச்சேரிக்கு போகிறதுன்றது அது ஒரு பிக்னிக் மாதிரி. குழந்தைலாம் அழைச்சிட்டு போயிட்டு அது முடிச்சுட்டு அவங்களுக்கு ஃபேவரட் ஹோட்டலில் இருக்கிற அங்கே போய் சாப்பிட்டு வருவாங்க. இப்போ அது அவ்வளோ டைம் ஸ்பெண்ட் பண்ணுறதுக்கு தயங்குறாங்க எனக்கு தோன்றும். எனக்கு தெரியாது, என்ன ரசிகர் மனசில் என்ன ஓடின்னு இருக்குன்னு தெரியல. அதனால் எல்லா சபாவும், ஒரு சபான்னு இல்லை, எல்லா சபாலையும் முன்னே இருக்கிற கூட்டம் இப்போது இல்லைன்றது கம்ப்ளைண்ட் சொல்ல மாட்டேன். அது ஒரு ஏக்கம் இருக்குது எல்லாருக்கும், சபா நடத்துகிறவங்களுக்கெல்லாம். அது எப்படி எப்படி அவங்கள திருப்பி கொண்டு வரதுன்னு தெரியல. அது ஒரு பக்கம் முயற்சி இருந்தாலும் முத்ராவுடைய இந்த முயற்சி பல நாடுகளை சேர்ந்து உலகத்தில் உள்ள அத்தனை சங்கீத ரசிகர்கள் கேட்கக்கூடிய ஒரு சூழ்நிலை உருவாக்கி கொடுத்துருக்கு. எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு வேறு யாரும் எந்த சபாவும் வெப்காஸ்ட் ஆரம்பிக்கலன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். ஸோ அவருடைய முயற்சி இன்னும் மேற்கொண்டு பல ரசிகர்கள் போய் சேரணும்னு நான் இறைவனை பிரார்த்திச்சுக்கிறேன். நன்றி.
Mudra proudly presents 30th Year Fine Art Festival from 1st December to 29th December for 29 days. This is going to be on the digital media and the concerts will be through PaalamTV. Rasikas can watch all the concerts from your computer at www.paalamtv.com, from your iPhone at www.paalamtv.com/iPhone, Android mobile users from Paalam TV 2.0 app, and from Smart TV through Mudhra Bhaskar YouTube channel.
All the efforts taken by us as well as the artists involves a lot of time, energy and money, and we are extremely thankful to you for your continuous support all these years. This year also, through the joy of giving, may I please request you all to contribute whatever possible, that is rupees 2,900 or more for those residing in India to be paid through bank transfer or GPay, and for those living abroad $150 or more through PayPal. All these contributions have ATG/IT exemption. And while you contribute, may I please request you all to remember to make a mention of your name, address, mobile number and PAN number. Here are the bank details.
Stay safe and watch all the concerts from your home. வீட்லயே இருங்க, கச்சேரியை என்ஜாய் பண்ணுங்க. This festival is in association with Nalli, powered by Rajalakshmi Institutions, co-sponsored by Pothys, sponsor Sundaram Finance Limited and Kalpadruma.
சின்ன சின்ன அடி வைத்து வந்தாய், சித்திரமாய் நெஞ்சில் நின்றாய், லட்சணமாய் பட்டாடையில் வந்தாய், பார்த்தாய், வென்றாய் என்னை. லட்சத்திலே ஒருத்தியாய் வந்தாய், பார்த்தாய், வென்றாய் என்னை.
போத்தீஸின் சாமுத்திரிகா பட்டு சர்வ லட்சணங்கள் நிறைந்த காஞ்சி பட்டு.
Namaskarams to all of you. Carnatic music is a multi-dimensional system which has so much to offer both to the performer and the listener. As Rasikas of Carnatic music, when we hear a song, immediately our thought goes to, well, what is the raga of this composition? And through years of listening experience, which in Tamil we call as Kelvi Jnanam, we immediately decipher the raga of that composition, and there's a sense of inner joy that we have discovered that raga. And there are also moments of turbulence, I would say, sometimes when we wonder, this ragam sounds like this ragam, but it is not that. So then there is some kind of a confusion in the mind till you find out accurately what the ragam is. This is one aspect for a listener. The second is about what or who the composer is of a particular composition. So in a concert, actually in a kacheri, we listen to a variety of compositions by different composers. The composers in our Carnatic system are called the Vagyekaras, that is the one who composes both the Vag and the Geya. And through the years in our history of music, we see that there have been innumerable number of composers who have adorned our music field. And what is very, very interesting is that every composer has tried to incorporate his mudra or signature in his composition. Of course, if you need to identify the mudra, you need to have some basic knowledge about of what the mudra of each composer is, and so that when it occurs in the song, you can identify it. Today we present to you a very, very special thematic concert, Mudras in musical composition, which will enlighten you on the various mudras used by various composers. The mudra is incorporated into the sahitya of the composition, and as I said, it indicates the authorship of the composition. In commonplace, just as we use the word mudra, it means a seal, a stamp, or a mark. In dance, of course, mudra occupies a different connotation and represents of an idea through a hand pose. In slokas also we see, like that of the Bhagavad Gita, at the end of each chapter you see that the indication of the chapter is made through a mudra, in the sense like Bhakti Yogo Nama Dwadashodhyayah, which means that it is the completion of the 12th chapter. In the musical parlance, we see that there are different kinds of mudras that have been adopted by the composers. And today will be a beautiful journey, I would say, traversing through all these various kinds of mudras. The most important among the mudras we see is what we call as the Vagyekara mudra. That is where the composer puts his stamp on the composition. In this again we have two types. what we call as the Swanama Mudra, where the composer incorporates his very own name into the composition, and Itara Nama Mudra, where the composer uses some other name other than his own to put a mark or a mudra in his composition. We begin our presentation with the Vagekara Mudra. First, we have chosen a set of 10 composers, 3 compositions each, which totals to running through, I would rather say, of 30 compositions. This year being the 30th anniversary of Mudra, its music festival, we thought it most fitting to start off with glimpses from 30 compositions. The first composer we are going to take, of course, is one among the Trinity, Sri Thyagaraja, who has used his own mudra Thyagaraja in his compositions. We begin with Thyagaraja.
Rajakula Kalashabdi Rajasurapala Gajaraja Rakshaka Thyagaraja Vinuda Anupama Gunam Buddhi
Varamonulu Vashil
Shulabhamuga Kadateranu Sujanalanu Teliyajeyu Ilanu Thyagaraja Mandavinavadela Gunavinina Manasayatulo Tunne.
Here also one point worth noting is the positioning of the mudra. That is, in the case of Sri Thyagaraja, we would see that in the last line of the charanam, he incorporates his mudra Thyagaraja. In some of the compositions, you would also see that there are multiple charanas, like 1, 2, 3 charanas. So the mudra will obviously occur in the last charana of the composition. The next composer we are going to take today is Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar, who uses his mudra Guru Guha. Again, it's a very tricky proposition, I would say, in terms of identifying here, because unlike Sri Thyagaraja, you would see that the Guru Guha mudra of Dikshitar occurs anywhere in the composition. It may be in the Pallavi, it may be in the Anupallavi, it may be in the Charanam, the Madhyamakala Sahityam. So you have to be very watchful, I would say, in terms of seeing where the mudra occurs. As for the mudra Guru Guha, many would be wondering why Dikshitar chose this Guru Guha mudra. And legend says that his Guru, Chidambara Swami, asked him to go to Tirutani, visit the place Tirutani. And there, when Dikshitar was in a state of meditation, an old man appeared to him and he asked him to open his mouth, and he put a sugar candy into his mouth. And just after this, Dikshitar burst into a composition, the historic composition that all of us know, Srinathati Guru Guho Jayati, in the raga Maya Mala Gaula, where he says, as a tribute to the Guru Guha or the Muruga, Srinathati Guru Guho Jayati. And that's how from there the journey started in his composing such prolific compositions for us. And every, or almost I would say, all his compositions bear the mudra Guru Guha. Now over to Dikshitar.
Shri Kanti Mati Shankara Yuvati Shri Guru Guha Janani Mande Ham Shri Kanti
Komala The next composer among the Trinity, Sri Shyama Sastri. By birth, Shyama Sastri's name was Venkata Subramanya, but his parents called him Shyama Krishna. That is the pet name. And later on we see that in his compositions also, this Shyama Krishna became the mudra.
Syama Krishna Paripalini Shulini, Syama Krishna Paripalini Shulini, Karuna Judu Ninnu Namminavadu.
Shyama Krishna Sodari, Shyamale Sodari, Shyama Krishna Sodari, Shyamale Sodari, Shankari Shankuru Chandramukhi,
Shyama Krishnuni Sodari Kaumari, Bimbadari Gauri Devi, Brova Samayamide.
The next composer is Swati Tirunal Maharaja. He was one of the rare composers who was also a king, I would say. And in his very short lifespan, he composed so many beautiful compositions for us. And his mudra is Padmanabha or Sarasijanabha. And this obviously indicates his devotion to Lord Padmanabha.
Diti jali vidalana dina bando pamava Shraddha vibuddha jala Shri Padmanabha shaure deva deva kalayamide
Paripa Legama Going back in time, the next composer, Sri Purandara Dasar, who is known as also the Sangeeta Pitamaha. He was originally named as Srinivasan Nayak, but of course, because of his devotion to Lord Vithala, we see that in his compositions, the mudra coming in as Purandara Vithala. Let us look at a few compositions.
ಏನು ಮಾಡಿದರೇನು ಪ್ರಾಣ ನಿನದೋ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಶ್ರೀನಾಥ ಪುರಂದರ ಶ್ರೀನಾಥ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲನ ದಾಸನ ಮೇಲೆ ಇನ್ನುದಯ ಬಾರದೆ
ಜಗದೊಳು ಮಹಿಮಯ ಪೊಗಳುವೆ ಜಗದೊಳು ನಿನ್ನಯ ಮಹಿಮಯ ಪೊಗಳುವೆ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲ ನೀ ಬಾರೋ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲ ನೀ ಬಾರೋ ಓ ಯಾದವ ನೀ ಬಾಯದು ಕುಲ
ಸಕ್ಕರ ತುಪ್ಪದ ಕಾಲುವೆ ಅರಿಸಿ ಶುಕ್ರವಾರದ ಪೂಜೆಯ ವೇಳೆಗೆ ಅಕ್ಕರೆಯುಲ್ಲಾಲಗಿರಿ ರಂಗನ ಚೊಕ್ಕ ಪುರಂದರ ವಿಠಲನ ರಾಣಿ ಭಾಗ್ಯದ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ಬಾರಮ್ಮ ನಮ್ಮಮ್ಮನಿ ಸೌಭಾಗ್ಯದ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ಬಾರಮ್ಮ.
I would also like to make a mention that the composers we have taken are not in chronological order. We have tried to form our own way of presentation. And once again, of course, I'd like to make a mention that we are only presenting glimpses of the composition. So pardon us for not being able to present the whole composition as such. Because as I said earlier also, the purpose is to highlight our theme of mudras. We now move on to Sri Kotishwara Iyer. One of the post-Trinity composers, Sri Kotishwara Iyer, and he was a grandson of the composer Kavikunjara Bharati. So in his compositions you would find the mudra Kavi Kunjara Dasan as a tribute to his grandfather. And now we'll be presenting to you 3 compositions. Of course, later we'll be presenting to you the compositions from his Kandaganamudam, which is a compilation of the compositions in the 72 Melagarthas that he has composed. But apart from that also he has composed a few compositions. So we present to you now some of them.
இன்ப சாகர கவி குஞ்சரதாச இன்ப சாகர கவி குஞ்சரதாச எனதகைருளகல விவரு ரூபானு கோடி என ஒளி வீசும் பிரகாசன்னலீசன் கனக சபேஷன்
உதர சிலையா நில் ஜோ சிலையா சொல்லையா மலையா கவி குஞ்சரதாசன் என்னை அளவேலையா தயவில்லையா.
உன்னும் கவி குஞ்சரதாசன் நான் உன்னருள் கொண்டேன் வண்ண துணிந்தேன். உன்னும் கவி குஞ்சரதாசன் நான் உன்னருள் கொண்டேன் வண்ண துணிந்தேன். முன்னவனே நின்னும் நின்றார் முடியாததொன்றில்லை ஆதலதி வேகமதாகவே வாரண முகவா தூணி வருவா.
The next composer, Sri Gopala Krishna Bharati, whose magnum opus we all know is the opera Nandanar Charitram. In his compositions he has used the mudra Gopala Krishnan, Balakrishnan.
பாதிப்பிரையை அணிந்திடும் பரமகிருபா கடாட்சியனை சோதிக்க வேண்டாம் பாலகிருஷ்ண சோதரியனை ஆதரி சிவகாம சுந்தரி
இன்பத்துடன் கோபால கிருஷ்ண துணு தேதிய ஜெகதீசனே நடராஜனே பிறவ கவரம் தாரும்.
அறிந்து சொல்ல கேட்போம் கோபால கிருஷ்ணன் பாடும் தில்லை சபாபதிக்கு வேற தெய்வம் சமானமாகுமதில்லை சபாபதிக்கு வேற தெய்வம்.
The next Vagekara, Sri Patnam Subramania Iyer, who uses the mudra Venkatesha.
परिचरवानर समूह पापशमन वारिवाह करिराज वरद वेंकटेश्वर मुरारिहर कोरिणवर मोसगुमैय कोदण्डपाणि
நோனரில்ச்ச வினவேமி பரத வெங்கடேஷ மரிவேரதி யுவ.
வெண்ணூர் వెంకటేశనాదు వెన్నుడైన శ్రీ వెంకటేశనాదు విన్నపంబు వినరదనాదో వారవిమాన మెన్నడుగల్ గురామ విమాన మెన్నడుగల్ గురామ.
The next composer, Sri Annamacharya, as a mark of his devotion to Lord Venkatesha of Tirupati, he uses the mudra, Venkatachala, Venkatagiri, Venkatanayaka and so on.
అచ్యుతుడు శ్రీ వెంకటాద్రిమిత నిదే అచ్యుతుడు శ్రీ వెంకటాద్రిమిత నిదే అచ్యుత అచ్యుత శరణనవో మనస భావములోన బాహ్యమునందును
వేదోధర శ్రీ వెంకటనాయక వేదోధర శ్రీ వెంకటనాయక నాద ప్రియతే నమో నమో నారాయణతే నమో నమో.
పరమాత్మా పరమాణు రూప శ్రీ తిరువెంకటగిరి దేవ శరణు శ్రీమన్నారాయణ శ్రీమన్నారాయణ శ్రీమన్నారాయణనే శ్రీపాదమే శరణు. హరి.
The final in this set of compositions, Sri Bhadrachala Ramadasa, another very great saint composer who's given us beautiful compositions. His mudra, Ramadasu, Bhadradri, Bhadragiri, Bhadrachala Vasa have been used in his compositions.
కరివరద భద్రాద్రి పురనిలయ రామదాసుడు కరివరద భద్రాద్రి పురనిలయ రామదాసుడు పరమాత్ముడను నిన్ను భావించలేరగిరి ఏమై రామా.
సమగన లోలనే చక్రయర రామదాసులేలిన భద్రాచలేశ్వర రామదాసులేలిన భద్రాచలేశ్వర రామభద్ర
గురిభద్రాద్రీషు నందే గురుదయ్యున్నది గురిభద్రాదీషు నందే గురుదయ్యున్నది ఎప్పుడరమరలేక రామ దాసుడనదగి ఉన్నది పళిరా వైరాగ్యమెంతో బాగై ఉన్నది చంచలమైన నా మనసు నీచలమై ఉన్నది పళిరా వైరాగ్యమెంతో.
We now present to you another set of composers where we'll be presenting to you one composition of each for you to know what the mudra of that particular composer is. We begin with Sri Mysore Vasudevacharya, who used the mudra Vasudeva.
ಯೋಗೇಶ್ವರ ಶ್ರೀಧರ ವಾಸುದೇವ ಪಗಲು ರೇಗಿ ಗುಂಡ ಪೊಗಡು ಚುಂಡಕ ನೀಗೇಲದಯ ರಾಧು ರಾಮಚಂದ್ರ ನಿನ್ನೆ ನಮ್ಮಲೇದ ಭಕ್ತವತ್ಸಲ.
The next composer, Sri Tiruvarur Ramaswamy Pillai, who used the mudra Vedapuri or Vedapurisha, after one of the names of Vaidiswaran Koil, let us look into one composition. Tamadam Indri Veda Puri Dasana Karulilda Yalbadarida Pelida Valam Jagadi Shwari. The next composer, Shri Ramaswami Dikshitar. He is a mudra vagekara in the sense that he uses two kinds of mudra in his compositions, Thyagaraja and Venkata Krishna. Let us look into one of his compositions.
Shiva 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 Shiyanu Chunu Varimpa Radha Janulara Shiva 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 Shiyanu Chunu Varimpa Radha Janulara Shiva 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 Shiva, Shiva, Shiva.
The next composer, Sri Nilakanta Shivan, who uses his own name Nilakanta in his compositions. We'll now look into a very popular composition of his.
Adikarayunda Neelakantam Minna Adikarayunda Neelakantam Minna Harapura Hara Shiva Shankara Arul Puri Guru Parasundar Andamum Indamum Adida Yendisayum Pugal Padida Ananda Nadambaduvarthillai.
The next composer, Sri Subbaraya Shastri, who was the second son of Sri Shama Shastri. His mudra is Kumara. Let us listen to a composition of his now. Surari Pula Damana Kumara Janani Karuna Rasakshi Kaumari Yani Sada Dala China The next composer, Sri Ramaswami Shivan, who uses the mudra Guhadasa. But also let me tell you that not all his compositions feature his mudra, but wherever it occurs, it is as Guhadasa.
Santatam Pugarndu Guha Dasan Manarthandu Miga Santatam Pugarndu Guha Dasan Manarthandu Miga Kadai Kan Vaitennaiyalamma.
The next composer, Sri Sadashiva Brahmendra, another great saint composer, who uses the mudra Hamsa or Paramahamsa.
Paramahamsa Hridgopuradipam Paramahamsa Hridgopuradipam Charanadalita Muni Darunishapam Chetah Shri Ramam Chintalaji Mudra
The next composer, Srimati Rukmini Ramani. We're all really very honored and proud that we are living in an age of this great composer. She has used the mudra Shivakumari as a tribute to her father, Sri Papanasam Sivan. Let us look at one of her compositions. Neela Meghane Nirmalane Neela Meghane Nirmalane Neela Meghane Nirmalane Bhakta Kola Khalale Shiva Kumari Tudikum Neela Meghane Nirmalane Bhakta Kola Khalale Shiva Kumari Tudikum Partha Saradi Tirupalli Kenil Naan Partha Saradi Tiravira Mogana Partha Saradi. We now move on to another great composer come performer, Sri M.D. Ramanathan, who created history of sorts through his unique way of singing. As a composer also, he has given us many beautiful compositions. His mudra is Varada Dasa, which he uses as a tribute to his guru, Sri Tiger Varadacharya.
श्रीकर शुभकर वरददास नूतपद सागर सागर शयन
Next, Sri Puchi Srinivasa Iyengar, who uses the mudra Srinivasa. Again, of course, not all his compositions feature his mudra, but let us look at one composition now.
Vanajasana Nuta Vadidhi Kanya Priya Vamana Rupa Srinivasa Varadayaka Vamana Rupa Srinivasa Varadayaka Parama Pavanarama.
Next is another great performer come composer, Chitravina Shri Ravi Kiran, who uses the mudra Ravi Shashi in his compositions. Sarva Bomane Ravi Shashi Sarva Bomane Ravi Shashi Sarva Bomane Ravi Shashi Gor Vidigone Tatabul Sarva Bomane Ravi Shashi Gor Vidigone Tatabul Marvadal Go Chandra Chuda Yegama Resha Resha Marvadal Go Chandra Chuda Yegama Resha Resha. The last in our line of Vagekara Mudras, Sri Dr. Balamurli Krishna, again another maestro who was one of the greatest performers of all times and also a great Vagekara. He uses the mudra Murali in his compositions.
महनीय मधुरमूर्ते महनीय मधुरमूर्ते कमनीय गानमूर्ते महनीय मधुरमूर्ते आश्रित मुरलीकृत मृदु संगीत सुधा सत्ते मां पाहि गुरुमूर्ते महनीय मधुरमूर्ते
In this section of Vagyakara Mudras, you saw how each composer has put in his stamp in different ways to give you an indication that this composition is by this particular composer. Of course, you should be able to know the mudra of the composer in order to identify it through the composition. And as Rasikas of music, this does take some amount of effort, but I'm sure it is worth it. In our Carnatic music system, we have different kinds of musical forms. Just now you saw how in the Kriti form or the Kirtana form, various Vagyakaras have incorporated their mudras. Let us now look at some other interesting forms featured in our own Carnatic music, beginning with the Varnam. We'll be presenting to you 3 Varnams, very popular ones, but I don't know if you really looked into the name of the composer while you were presenting or singing it. First, Ninnu Kori, which is a composition of Ramnad Srinivasa Iyengar and his mudra is Srinivasa. Then the popular Saveri Varnam Sarasuda, a composition of Sri Patnam Subramaniya where he uses his mudra Venkatesha, and Dr. Balamurali Krishna's Varnam again here where he uses his mudra Murali. Let us now listen to these 3 compositions.
Ninnu koriyunnarurasannu Srinivasa Srinivasa Sarasudayani ne kori girini velayu Srivelkadesha girini velayu Srivelkadesha
Amma Anandadayini akara ukara makara rupini vammani nunammi balamuralikanambu chesidanyudanayitini vammani nunammi balamuralikanambu chesidanyudanayitini amma anandadayini.
Next we move on to the Tevaram form. I'll be presenting one Tevaram where you would see the mudra of Sri Tirugyana Sambandar occurring in it. Mandiramavadu neere Vanavar meladu neere Sundaravavadu neere Tudikapaduvadu neere Aatalladal vidaiyerum Alavayin Now we move on to the javali, which is supposed to be a Shringara oriented composition. In this we have many composers, but today we will be taking up a composition of Dharmapuri Subbarayar, where he uses his mudra as Dharmapuri, which happens to be his birthplace.
Nanu kalasimar mamulerigina dharma puri vasudu Sakhi prana Sakudi tuje se Sakhi prana
The next form that we see as presented in a kacheri is the Ashtabadi, which happens to be presented as one of the Tukada pieces in a concert. The Sanskrit hymns of the Gita Govindam by Jayadeva, in that the work is known as the Ashtapadi, and here we see that Jayadeva uses his own mudra in his compositions. Let us look at one such composition. Shri Jayadeva Panitamita Mudayati Haritarana Spriti Sayaram. Shri Jayadeva Panitamita Mudayati Haritarana Spriti Sayaram. Lalita Lavanga Lata The next is Sri Narayana Tirthar, who is the author of the beautiful work Sri Krishna Leela Tarangini, depicting the various aspects of Lord Krishna. He uses the mudra Narayana Tirthar, that is the Swanama mudra itself is being used by the composer in his composition.
Narayana Tirthachita Charana Narayana Tirthachita Charana Govardhana Giridhara Govinda Gokula Balaka Paramananda Govardhana Giridhara.
The next form is the Tirupugal of Sri Arunagirinathar. Of course, this again forms an interesting piece as part of the Tukadas because of the fact that it uses the Chanda Talam, which is a very unique kind of Talam. Never before, never after, we say. So he was the person who created these compositions in these unique Chanda Talams. We look into one of the composition, and most of the composition you would see that they end with the word Perumale. So that again becomes some kind of a mudra to indicate that particular form that Sri Arunagirinathar has composed. Poru porudumir charanane sattevai tunarene unadu palani malayenum oorai sevi tarigege durita vidinirudal pura surai kara perumade toludu vadipadum adiya kava kara perumade iridi kavi vidarana vinoda kara perumade viranmarava chirumi tiruvele kara perumade. Our Carnatic music is indeed a very beautiful system, I would say, because it encompasses the best of different systems of music. And that is how our music is also very unique. In this context, we see how the compositions or melodies of the folk type are also part of our Carnatic music kacheris in the form of Kavadi Chindis. These Kavadi Chindis have got a very lilting melody of its own, and one of the prominent composers we see is Annamalai Reddiyar, who uses the mudra Annamalai in his compositions. Let us look at one of his compositions now.
சென்னிக்குல நகர்வாசம் தமிழ் தேருமண்ணாமலைதாசன் சென்னிக்குல நகர்வாசன் தமிழ் தேருமண்ணாமலைதாசன் செப்பும் ஜகமெச்சிய மதுர கவிகதனை புரைவரையில் புனைதீரன் அயில் வீரன் செப்பும் ஜகமெச்சிய மதுர கவிகதனை புயவரையில் புனைதீரன் அயில் வீரன்.
As I mentioned earlier, this process of adaptation and adoption which happens in our Carnatic music is what makes it very, very unique. Let us travel a bit now towards the north to see how the bhajans and abangs have also been incorporated into our Carnatic kacheri because of the fact that these forms give a very unique flavor to the kacheri itself. We'll now look into the mudra of one of the bhajan composers, Meera, where she uses her own mudra, the Swanama mudra, Meera.
मीरा के प्रभु गिरिधर नागर मीरा के प्रभु गिरिधर नागर चरण कमल बलिहारी रे चरण कमल बलिहारी रे चरण कमल बलिहारी
The next form, abangs, which of late have become very popular in our Carnatic kacheris. These are devotional songs which are sung by the devotees as they travel to Pandharpur. So they are absolutely charged, I would say, with the devotional content. In this composers of this abang we see, we have Sri Namdev and then Tukaram and many more are there. We look into a glimpse of a composition from that of Sri or Sant, I would say rather, Namdev. Namamani tu Vishwachi Janani Namamani tu Vishwachi Janani Shiradhini Vasini Jagadambe Bhakta Jana Vatsali Bhakta Jana Similarly, Tukaram, where he uses the mudra Tukamane. Tukamane deha bharila vithale Tukamane deha bharila vithale Kama krodha kele dhare ri bolava vithale pahava vithale bolava vithale pahava vithale. We look into another composer, Tulsidas. Again, he also uses his own name, a very popular bhajan of his we are going to listen to now.
तुलसीदास अति आनंद तुलसीदास अति आनंद देख के मुखारविंद तुलसीदास अति आनंद देख के मुखारविंद रघुवर छवि के समान रघुवर छवि के रघुवर छवि बनिया तुम
also have an interesting concept of the mudra called the Paryaya Nama Mudra, which was used by Sri Swati Tirunal. Now, what do we mean by this? He used actually the mudra Padmanabha. Padma means lotus. So, he's also used other kinds of mudra where, or rather the words actually mean only the lotus. For example, Sarasanabha, Jalajanabha, Sarasijanabha, Sarojanabha, Neerajanabha, Pankajanabha, and so on. Let us now look at a few compositions, or rather the glimpse of the composition, to see where this mudra occurs in different ways.
Shankara Vidhivala Shasana Muda Guna Shankuru Satatam Me Sarasana Bhashure Pankaja Lochana
Jalajanabha Sodari, Jalajanabha Sodari, Ammanali Nayaka Netri Mama Sada Bharati.
सरसी जनाभ मुरारे पाहि सततं सरसी जनाभ मुरारे पाहि सततं शमलाद्रि पुलिश शौरे
Sarasa Suvachana Sarojana Bhalokanayaka Sarasa Suvachana Sarojana Bhalokanayaka Puri Karuna Tanujita Manasija Bhujagaraja Shayana Puri Karuna Tanujita Manasija Bhujagaraja Shayana Murashasana Gopalaka Pahi Manisham
Neerajanapsu Pallamedutara Neeradakanti Samalake Pagi Jagajanani
पादविनत सुखमा हिवरशयन पङ्कजनाभविभो पादविनत सुखमा हिवरशयन पङ्कजनाभविभो करुणाकर माधव मामव भासुरकनक सुरुचिर निजवासना
நாதஸ்வரம் கேட்டாதான் கல்யாணம், நல்ல விருந்து சாப்பிட்டாதான் கல்யாணம், சொந்தம் சேர்ந்தாதான் கல்யாணம், போத்தி சாமுத்திரிகா பட்டோட மணமகள் வந்தாதான் கல்யாணம். போத்தி சாமுத்திரிகா பட்டு இல்லாம கல்யாணமா? சாமுத்திரிகா பட்டு இருந்தா தான் கல்யாணம்.
போத்தீஸின் சாமுத்திரிகா பட்டு
சர்வ லட்சணங்கள் நிறைந்த காஞ்சி பட்டு.
We now move on to another interesting mudra in compositions, which is the raga mudra, wherein you would see that the raga's name gets incorporated within the composition itself. Thus, when you listen to the particular composition, it is indicative also of what raga it is composed in. Now, there are two uses of this if you look at it in a more deeper level. One is that, of course, there is no ambiguity in the sense that there is no possibility of singing that particular composition in some other raga because the raga's name already is embedded within the composition. And also in some of Dikshitar's compositions, we also get to know the correct name of ragas. For example, in the Chaturdasha Ragamalika, you see Sama Gana Vinutam. So what we sometimes call as Shama and other names, he clearly indicates that it is Shama. And then similarly also see in the popular composition Akilandeshwari, sometimes we call it as Jai Jayavanti, Jujavanti, Dvajavanti and on so on. But the lyrics of the composition gives a clear indication that it is Jujavanti Raganute. So like this, the Raga Mudra actually serves multi-purposes, I would say, in terms of being embedded within the composition. In the Raga Mudra, again, there are two types where you have the Shuddha kind of a Raga Mudra and Suchita. Shuddha means where the Raga's name is clearly visible through the composition. And Suchita means that, again, that is a master plan of Dikshitar, where you would see that between two words that Raga's name gets sandwiched. So you have to be extra careful in terms of looking into the composition to see where the Raga Mudra occurs. First we look into the Shuddha Mudra as incorporated by Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar.
Kalavati Kamalasana Yuvati Kalavati Kamalasana Yuvati Kalavati Kamalasana Yuvati Kalavati Kamalasana
Here the Raga Mudra Kalavati occurs as the very first word, and Kalavati again also refers to goddess Saraswati. So what I want to emphasize here also is the fact that the great Vagekaras like Muthuswami Dikshitar, who has made profound use of this Raga Mudra, it is not just about thrusting the name of the Raga within the composition anywhere and everywhere, but very appropriately and seamlessly, so that the entire meaning of that sentence does not get distorted at any point of time. Let us look at now a Suchita Mudra. I will first sing the line and see whether you can identify what ragam this composition is in. Rama Rama Kali Kalusha Virama This is of course a very rare ragam, so I don't know if you were able to identify. But the point here is about how he has incorporated the ragam beautifully, keeping intact the meaning. Here, Rama Rama Kali Kalusha Virama, that is the first line, which means, O Rama, one who puts an end to the sins of Kali Yuga. Rama Rama Kali Kalusha Virama. Now, if you try to arrange it in a different way, Rama Rama Kali Kalusha Virama. So that Rama Kali, that particular ragam, when you join these two words, you will see that the word gives you the raga name as Ramakali. So these are all the marvels, I would say, that our great Vagekaras have created for us. And especially in the case of Dikshitar, you would see that this has been done at a very phenomenal level, I would say. As I mentioned earlier, Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar incorporates the Raga Mudra as well as his own Mudra, which I mentioned earlier. Like that, the Raga Mudra also would come anywhere in the composition according to the context, according to the sentence or the meaning of the particular whole passage itself. So we look into three compositions where the Raga Mudra is embedded, one in the Pallavi, one in the Anupallavi, and the next in the Charana.
Madhuravani Parali Veni Mamava Meenakshi
Nij Rupa Dana Daksha Charana Aruna Nitya Kalyana
मनोहरी राके दुषे करी सुख करी मनोहरी राके दुषे करी सुख करी मादलगी श्रीराजराजेश्वरी.
Were you able to identify the ragams? The first one was Varali, the next Kalyani, and in the Charanam, Rama Manohari. In the concept of the next kind of form, this is a Pallavi Anupallavi Charana format that Dikshitar adopted. He is also the one who created the format of a Pallavi and Samashti Charana. So, in this kind of a composition, how does he apply the Raga Mudra? First in the Pallavi, Parandamavati Jayati, Parandamavati Jayati, Parvati Paramesha Yuvati, Parandamavati Jayati. Here you would have noticed also that he has used Dhamavati. We also have to understand that some names have taken different names in the Thyagaraja school and Dikshitar school. So what is commonly known as Dharmavati for us is used, or rather Dikshitar mentions it as Dhamavati. Like this, we also get to have such valuable information from the compositions. The second one, of course, is the Samashti Charanam, where you would see again the Suchita Mudra that he has adopted in this particular composition. Samsara Vidyapake Sakala Mantrakshara Ruge, Samsara Vidyapake Sakala Mantrakshara Ruge, Shri Saraswati Namostute. Here in this you would have seen the Suchita Raga Mudra, Samsara Vidyapahe, that is, O remover of the fear of the samsara. Interestingly, some students also do not understand the meaning and sing Samsara Vidyapahe, thinking that they are singing on Lord, that is the goddess Saraswati, and trying to sing it that way. But we have to understand how he has beautifully incorporated Samsara Vidyapahe. Again, the meaning is so beautifully interwoven along with the Raga Mudra. Or another example, Mahakavya Natakari Priyam Mushika Vagana Modaga Priyam, Mahakavya Natakari Priyam Mushika Vagana Modaga Priyam, Magna Garnapatim. So Mahakavya Natakari Priyam, the one who is fond of great works of poetry and drama or nataka. So here the word again, nata, the raga mudra gets embedded here. We now move on to another interesting segment where the raga mudra becomes actually the primary or the predominant aspect of the whole composition itself. Yes, I am referring to the Ragamalikas, where you would see that the raga's name gets interwoven so beautifully. Now we present to you a Ragamalika, Arabhimanam Vaitai, a composition of Tarangambadi Panchanada Iyer, one of the 20th century composers. And in this song, he praises Goddess Mother, and the entire composition is woven around the names of the Ragams. And many of them actually, again here also, the Ragams symbolically also refer to the goddess. This is a Ragamalika having 12 Ragams. I am not going to mention the names of the ragams. As we keep singing, I request you all to please guessing and see how many ragas you are able to identify through this composition.
Arabhimanam vaitadariparenai, Arabhimanam vaitadariparenai. பைரவி சனி சகரி கமப கமபத மரி சனி தபத பமகரி பமகரி சனி ரசரி மகரி பமகரி தபமபத சனி தபமகரி அரபிமானம் வைதாரி பாரன்னை ஆனந்த பைரவி பாரில் உன்னை அல்லார் பரம கல்யாணி பாரில் உன்னை அல்லார் பரம கல்யாணி யாரிடத்தில் சொல்வேன் ஹம்சத்வனி சிவகாம சுந்தரி யாரிடத்தில் சொல்வேன் ஹம்சத்வனி சிவகாம சுந்தரி ககப பனி நிச நிச நிகரி சரி சரி சனி பக பக பகரி சரி சனி த நி சரி க ம ப ம த நி சரி சனி த நி சனி த ப ம கரி சனி ச கரி க ம ப க ம ப த பரி சனி த ப த ப ம கரி ப ம கரி ரி சனி த சரி ம கரி ப ம கரி த ப ம ப த சனி த ப ம கரி அரபிமானம் வைதாரி பாரன்னை ஆனந்த பைரவி சந்ததமும் நான் சாரங்க பாணி தேவி சந்ததமும் நான் சாரங்க பாணி தேவி சரணமே கதிகின்ற சாமஜகாமினி நின் சரணமே கதி என்ற சாமஜகாமினி சிந்தனை செய்ய ஜகல் மோகன ரூபிணி சிந்தனை செய்ய ஜகன் மோகன ரூபிணி சித்தமிரங்கினால் என்ன ஸ்ரீலலிதாம்பா சித்தமிரங்கினால் என்ன ஸ்ரீலலிதாம்பா மாதக மத சக மத நி சக மனித தனித மாதக மத சக மத நி சக மனித சனி ரி சனி கரி சனி த பத க பத சரி க சரி த ச பத கரி சரி கரி த சரி ச பத சத க பத சத ம பத ம கரி சரி க சரி கத ச சரி ரி ம ம பத த ப ம பத நி சரி சதா ப மரி க மரி சரி ச ப ம த ப மரி க மரி சாரபிமானம் வைதாரி பாரன்னை ஆனந்த பைரவி தாபங்கள் தீருமே உந்தர்பார் மகிமை சொல்ல தாபங்கள் தீருமே உந்தர்பார் மகிமை சொல்ல தரமாய நாளம்மா பரமா பவனி பைரவி தரமாய நாளம்மா பரமா பவனி பைரவி காப்பாற்ற வேணும் என்னை கருணபுரிதனயனா காப்பாற்ற வேணும் என்னை கருணபுரிதனயனா கடை கண்ணல் பாதம்மா கமலா மனோஹரி கடை கண்ணல் பாரம்மா கமலா மனோஹரி கமபனி சகசா நிதபம கபமக சகமபனி சகசா நிதபம கபமக சகமபனி சானி தபமக சனி த சரி க சி க மபதப சானி த கரி நித மக நித மகரி கரி நி ச கரி க மபத மபதலி சரி சா ப கரி சனி தப மகரி சரி மபத ப மபதலி ச பதனி சரி க கரி நின்னி தப க கரி சாரபிமானம் வைதாரி பாரன்னை ஆனந்த பைரவி
Well, that was an interesting Ragamalika, isn't it? Were you able to identify all the ragams that came in this composition? If not, let me recap it for you. It started off with Arabi, Ananda Bhairavi, Kalyani, Hamsadvani, Saranga, Shama, Mohana, Lalita, Darbar, Bhairavi, and finally ended in Kamala Manohari. Like this, we see that the concept of this Ragamalika, the Mudra, all this has been incorporated by so many composers. Some of them we are not even aware of, in the sense that there are some compositions which are so huge and so big that they never come to be featured as part of the concerts. So today we thought we look into those rare compositions also, because I would say that all these compositions that we are going to present now are purely, I would say, a labor of love. Love for music, a passion for music, because I'm sure that when a person like Mahavaidyanath Shivan composed the 72 Mela Ragamalika, which we are going to sing to you now, in its small excerpts, of course, because it's a very long composition. So when he did this 72 Mela Ragamalika, I'm sure that he didn't expect anyone to sing it in a kacheri, but then for posterity, this is a beautiful documentation, I would say, of the Lakshana of these ragas. We know that there are the 72 ragas starting from Kanakangi, Ratnangi, Ganamurte. Like this, we have the 72 ragas. But how do these ragas sound in terms of their Lakshya? Just not having the Lakshana, but also the Lakshya as to how practically the whole scale or the whole raga sounds. It comes out, or rather blossoms, I would say, beautifully through the compositions like these, like the 72 Mela Ragamalika of Mahavaidyanath Shivan. I would say that this is one of his greatest contributions, and this Ragamalika is dedicated to, or rather in praise of Lord Pranatarthi Hara at Thiruvayar. And the entire Ragamalika is set to Adi Talam. The Pallavi starts off on an auspicious note. In fact, it's very interesting to see that many Ragamalikas, for that matter, start with Sri Ragam, in the sense that Sri is supposed to be one of the very auspicious Ragams. And this is followed by, this particular composition has got a very unique structure. This is followed by a Swara passage and also a Jati in the first portion, that is in the Sri Ragam. And then continuously he, through the Charanas, brings out all the beauty of the 72 Melagartha ragas. Today we will be presenting to you the first one, Pranatarthi Hara Prabho Murare, in the Ragam Shri. And we have taken up 3 ragas for you, that is the 13th, 14th and 15th Mela, Gayaka Priya, Vakula Bharanam and Maya Molagola. We now begin with the first Pallavi portion and continue thereafter.
Pranatarthi Hara Prabho Purare, Pranatarthi Hara Prabho Purare, Pranava Rupa Sampade Pade, Pranamami Shri, Pranamami Shri, Pranamami Shri Prakriti Preraka Pramada Ganapate Pade Pade, Rigari Rigari Sani Sari Sa Sari Sani Pani Sani Pama Pani Sari Rigari Sa, Rimari Pamani Pani Ma Pamani Pasani Sani Gari Gasari Nisa Pani Ma Pari Gari Ma Tam Tam Takanaka Dhim Dhim Dhimi Dari Gida Taka Dari Gudu Dhim Dhim Putagani Takagani Takacham Nadiri Diri Tom Diri Diri Dittilla Nadiri Nadana Tom Dari Takanaka Takachana Takadimi Zagratala Kutom Takadiku Tarikina Tom Hina Tom Dhira Bhadrakya Gayaka Priya Veerabhadradi Palita Charana, Dheerabhadrakya Gayaka Priya Veerabhadradi Palita Charana, Nini Sari Sari Gari Gama Gari Sari Gama Pama Gama Dada Papa Magari Sari Nisa Ri Sari Gari Gama Gari Sari Gama Pama Gama Dada Papa Magari Sari Gama Pada Ma Pada Ma Pa Sani Sari Sani Nida Pada जितमाया माळव गौळांत गतमाहेश त्वां वन्दन्ति जितमाया माळव गौळांत गतमाहेश त्वां वन्दन्ति सरि गम पद मप गम प म पद प पद नि स नि नि द द प प म म ग ग रि रि ग म ग द प द म प ग म ग रि स नि स ग म प द नि स द नि प द नि स नि द प म
In each of these passages, if you had observed keenly, you would have seen how the Raga Mudra has been incorporated very beautifully. For instance, in the passage that I sang, Devakula Bharano Dharaka Shri Vasudeva Kula Bharana Natacharana. In fact, the Vakula Bharana, that particular scale or mela, in this, to have the meaning complete, it comes 2 times as well. But in all the other sections, the 72 sections, you will see that at some point within that Sahitya, the name of the Ragam, that is a Raga Mudra, gets incorporated.
This festival is in association with Nalli, powered by Rajalakshmi Institutions, co-sponsored by Pothys, sponsor Sundaram Finance Limited and Kalpadruma. The next monumental composition in which the Raga Mudra actually occurs so beautifully, I would say, is the Chaturdasha Ragamalika of Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar. I could also add that it's one of the unparalleled compositions in many ways. Shri Vishwanatham Bhajeham. It is set in 14 ragas, and there is a purpose again. Why 14? See, these are all what the great Vagekaras, I would say, stood tall in terms of thinking in so many different ways while composing a particular composition for us. Here the Chaturdasha Ragamalika, that is happening in 14 ragas, symbolizes the 14 worlds as mentioned in the Puranas. And we see that a piece of great majesty, Dikshitar employs the Raga Mudras here very beautifully. Again here this composition also starts on the Ragam Shri, and see how the opening word itself starts with Shri, Shri Vishwanatham Bhajeham. So where Shri also is a reverence for Vishwanatha the god, and Shri also is indicative of the Ragam here. Like this in other places you would see Samsara Vidyapaham Arabi Ragam, or Mohana Karalingam in Ragam Mohanam, Samagana indicating Samaraga, Lalita Hridaya Lalita, and so on. Here also you can, apart from the fact that the Raga Mudras are incorporated, you'd see that Shri Vishwanatham Bhajeham Chaturdasha Bhuvana Rupa Raga Malika Bharana Dharananta Karanam, where he mentions so many things are revealed, that it is a Raga Malika, it is a Chaturdasha Raga Malika having 14 ragas, Chaturdasha Bhuvana indicating the 14 worlds, then Rupa Raga Malika, that form he is telling us, and through this whole composition again, it is again another masterpiece for the reason that after all the 14 ragas are completed, they have Chittaswarams also which go in the Viloma Krama. It's a very big composition, so we will render to you just a few portions, the Pallavi and the Anupallavi, for you to see how the Raga Mudra gets beautifully embedded in the composition, along with the meaning of the composition also getting to be expressed so explicitly here. Shri Vishwanatham Bhajeham, Shri Vishwanatham Bhajeham, Ni sa re ma pa ni sa re sa pa ni sa re sa
efforts taken by us as well as the artists involves a lot of time, energy and money, and we are extremely thankful to you for your continuous support all these years. This year also, through the joy of giving, may I please request you all to contribute whatever possible, that is rupees 2,900 or more for those residing in India to be paid through bank transfer or GPay, and for those living abroad $150 or more through PayPal. All these contributions have ATG IT exemption, and while you contribute, may I please request you all to remember to make a mention of your name, address, mobile number and PAN number. Here are the bank details.
Stay safe and watch all the concerts from your home. வீட்லயே இருங்க, கச்சேரியை என்ஜாய் பண்ணுங்க.
Next we move on to another monumental composition, I would say, the Raga Thaalamalika, or rather the Ashtottara Ragamalika of Sri Ramaswami Dikshitar, which is composed in the 108 talas. Sadly, we are not able to get the entire manuscript or the script of the composition, and only about the 61 talas are available to us. Today we thought we'll take that as also up to show you how in this composition, in every passage, the raga name as well as the tala name both are incorporated within that particular portion. And this is one of the longest composition, obviously, because it covers 108 talas, so it is a very long composition. And the text of this composition is in chaste Telugu. We'll now look into the first three sections. As I said, it's a very long composition, but we want to show you samples of mudra in the different musical forms. So here, the first three are in the first three order of the Shuladi Saptatalas, that is Dhruva, Matya and Rupakam, and they are set in the ragas Nata, Gaula and then Barali. We'll be presenting to you now this particular composition, the first three segments.
Natakadi
To the Kritis, a very important composer, Sri Kotishwara Iyer, who composed compositions in all the 72 Melakarta ragas, that is separate compositions. But again, what is very important and interesting is how he has incorporated the raga mudra in each of the compositions that he created. This whole body of work that he created is known as the Kanda Ganamudam, Let us look at a few compositions where the mudra of the raga actually occurs.
Sukumara Guru Para Pannir Kara Parashubani Sudarshana Pani Sukiravani Velava Vava Vinaitira
Niti Matital
Find it very interesting? And could you find out all the ragas that were incorporated within the composition? Kiravani, Nitimati, Chalanata, Shulini, Charukesi and Jyoti Swarupini were the ragas we presented to you through our compositions. As I mentioned earlier, the raga mudra has been exhaustively used by Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar. We'd like to present to you a beautiful garland now of the raga mudra that is incorporated in 25 compositions. I request you all to please enjoy how he incorporates it and also see how many of them you can identify.
Srinatadi Guru Guru Jayati Jayati Srinatadi Guru Guru Jayati Maya Malava Gaudari Desha Maya Malava Gaudari Desha Mahi Pada Pujita Pada Pradesha Maya Malava Gaudari Desha Janaki Ramanam Kodanda Ramam
Bhairavi Prasangam Guru Gugantarangam Prithvilingam
Veeravasanta Thyagaraja Mamta आशु करुणानिधे
त्वमाहुरीश दयस्ते त्वमिति करुणानिधे दीनमामव रघुवीरा
सुधातरङ्गिणी अन्तरङ्गिणी सुधातरङ्गिणी अन्तरङ्गिणी
नमो नमस्ते गीर्वाणी
वीणाभेरी वेणुवाद्यादि विनोदिनी मोदिनी रक्षमा
कामकले विमले करकमले कामकोटि विलहरि नुदगमले
जुजावन्ति रागरूपे
कोणत्रयवासिनि गुरुगुह विश्वासि कन्नड बङ्गळे गाधार भञ्जनी
श्रीकेदारादि क्षेत्र आधारम्
हरादि गुरुगुह दोषितबिम्बं हंसध्वनिभूषितहेरम्बम्
छाया गौरतनया वरया श्री
पीतवसना गुरुगुगमातुलगतां ललिताम्
सावेरी रागनूतम्
वृन्दावन सारङ्गेन्द्र वरद रमान्त रङ्ग
सौराष्ट्रान् मन्त्रात्मने सौवन स्वरूपात्मने
अत्यद्भुतकरहृदसारङ्गम्
वीरवर मोहन विभास्वर मारवर मानव हरीश्वर
अमृतवर्षिणि हरारि मोदिते शिवे भवानि
गुणिजनादिनुत गुरुगुहोदये गुर्जरी रागप्रिये अवशिवे
सन्ततं यमुनाम्बापुरि निवसन्तं नतसन्तं हिन्दोळवसन्तम्
कुमुदक्रिया रागनोतं
श्रीकमलाम्बिके शिवे पाहि मां ललिते श्रीकमलाम्बिके.
That was indeed an interesting medley, I would say, of all the raga mudras that Dikshitar has incorporated in his compositions. I would just like to add here that there are some ragas which we know commonly but have been used in a different name in Dikshitar's composition. For example, Purvi Kalyani that we talk about is referred to as Gamaga Kriya by Dikshitar. Or for example, if you take the ragam Suddha Saveri, he calls it Deva Kriya. So if you search for Purvi Kalyani or Suddha Saveri in that composition, you may not find it. So you should also be familiar with the names that Dikshitar has used for these particular ragas. We now move on to another very rare kind of a compositional form where the raga mudra has been incorporated. These are the Lakshana Geetams. Now these are all kind of compositions which are never featured, I would say, in a concert. So these kind of thematic concerts are a very right platform, I would say, to showcase these beautiful compositions, again These are all, I would, as I said earlier, also a labor of love where they have tried to really bring out the raga, mudra and so many details of the raga through these Lakshana Geetams. And this one we are going to present to you is in the ragam Abheri, a composition of Sri Govindacharya, who is the author of the Sangraha Chudamani. What you would like to, or what you should be able to see in this particular composition is that Abheri, as we all know, is an Auda Sampurna ragam, and in the present day the Abheri has taken a different color in terms of being rather it has been attributed to the janya of the 22nd Mela Karahara Priya, but earlier it was the janya of Natabhairavi. Again in Dikshitar school they call it Narabhairavi, so in the composition you'll also see that the mention is of Narabhairavi. And also the complete Lakshana of that particular ragam as to what Rishabham it uses, what are the different notes, what are the varieties, everything is portrayed through the medium of this composition. So the composition becomes a Lakshya and a Lakshana kind of a beautiful combination for you. Let us now listen to the Lakshana Geetam in the ragam Abheri by Sri Govindacharya.
Garuda Gamana Satya Bhashana Vibhishana Poshaku Re Re Chatu Shruti Rishabha Sadharana स्वर इतर शुद्ध आरोह रिधवर्जित अवरोह संपूर्ण साग्रहण्य सांश त्रिपुट भैरवी में लजनित आभेरी राग मवध श्री राम नमो नमो
There are also other types of mudras which I'll just run through, like the Raja Mudra, which gives the name of the patron. For example, in the Chaturdasha Ragamalika, we see a mention of Vaidyalinga Bhupala Palanam, who happens to be the learned Mirajdar of Kulikare. Similarly, we see that in the Tirupugars, the Sthala Mudra occurring. For example, in the Tirupugar Karanamadaga, we see that Solai Malai Mevi Nindra Perumale, which indicates the place Palamudir Solai. Like this, if you look into the Tirupugar composition, many such identification of places can be made, that is in praise of which Murugar he has composed. You can get to identify when you look intently into the composition. Then we also come to some of the compositions of Thyagaraja, like where he mentions Kovuri Sundaresha, referring to Kovur, or in the composition Laliteshi Pravriddha, he mentions Tapastirtha Nagara, that was the earlier name of Lalgudi. Now we know it as Lalgudi Pancharatnam. So he mentions that. Like this, we see there are many compositions mentioning the Sthala Mudra. Then we come to the Panchalinga Bhuta. Again, that mudra is also very important as seen in the compositions of Dikshitar. For example, if you look at the composition Arunachalanatham, you see the Tejo Maya, that referring to the element of fire, or in Jambupate, Appu or water is being referred to. Like this, you can look into the compositions. There are other compositions also, like Sri Matrubhutam mentioning Trishiragiri as Tiruchi, or Kalavati, where he mentions the place Kashmir and so on. Then we have what we call as the Chakra Mudras, which Dikshitar is incorporated in his Kamalamba Navavarnam. For example, in Kamalambam Bajare, Sarvasha Paripurna Chakra he refers to. And again, the beautiful Kriti is the Graha Mudra in the Navagraha Kritis, Surya Murte, Chandram Bhaja Manasa. Like this, if you look at all the composition, he incorporates the Graha Mudras in these compositions. We now move on to the Another domain where we see that the Ragamalika or the Raga Mudra also plays a very important role in the area of vrittams, where you see that sometimes the vrittams are taken as some nice passage from a shloka or a particular work, but sometimes we also see that the name of the ragam is incorporated within the line itself. Today, to give you some more interest to this element of vrittam, we have actually taken lines from different compositions, just a particular portion of that line where the Raga Mudra also happens to be incorporated within it. We'll be presenting it to you very briefly. Of course, in a kacheri, an artist can go about elaborating that as much as his manodharma takes him to.
Nitya Kalyani 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 Kartyayani
Guru Guha Matula Kantam Lalita Lalita Lalita
Uttunga Kamaniya Vrishaturangam Bhairavi Prasangam Bhairavi Prasangam Bhairavi Prasangam
Mohana Rama Mohana Rama Mohana Rama Mukharjita Mukharjita Soma
Shri Purari Rani Kirvani Kirvani Kirvani
Rama Manohari Rama Manohari Rama Manohari Rakendu Shekhari Shukakari
Shri Varalakshmi Shri Varalakshmi Namastubhyam Vasuprade Shri Varalakshmi Namastubhyam Vasuprade
In the domain of Ragam Tanam Pallavi also we see that the Raga Mudra can be beautifully incorporated, and there's a play, I would say, of these Ragams through the medium of Manodharma as done by great musicians you would have seen. We look into a very traditional Ragam Tanam Pallavi, the Asa, which is set to 4 ragas. As we keep singing, you will get to understand what are the ragas which constitute it.
Shankara Varananai Azhai Todi Vadi Kalyani Darbarukku Shankara Varananai Azhai Todi Vadi Kalyani Darbarukku Shankara Varananai.
We'll now look into one more Pallavi Asa, which is set to 3 ragas. Let us now listen to it.
Saraswati Veena Pustakadharini Harivaksha Stalalaye Lalite Made Karagadurge Mapahi Saraswati Veena Pustakadharini Harivaksha Stalalaye Lalite Made Karagadurge Mapahi Saraswati Veena Pustakadharini Harivaksha Stalalaye Lalite Made Karagadurge Mapahi Saraswati Veena
Every concert has to come to an end, and so also our thematic concert today. Every concert we see that the Mangalam forms the last piece, in the sense that the idea of singing the Mangalam is kind of praying for the peace and prosperity of everybody. In this context also we see that many composers have sung Mangalams on their own favorite deity. We'll just look into the glimpse, rather I would, of a few Mangalams that have been composed by various composers. Vigna Vinayaka Murtike Mangalam Vedamuga Modidavar Vigna Vinayaka Murtike Mangalam
Ramachandraya Janakaraja Manoharaya Mamadabhishadaya Mahimamangalam Ramachandraya Janakaraja Manoharaya Mamadabhishadaya Mahimamangalam Matangatanayaya Mangalam Bhuyo Manasi Jarikandaya Mangalam
Jaya Mangalam
ஸ்ரீராமச்சந்திரனுக்கு ஜெயமங்களம் நல்ல திவ்யமுக சந்திரனுக்கு சுபமங்களம் ஸ்ரீராமச்சந்திரனுக்கு ஜெயமங்களம் நீநாம ரூபமுலகு நித்ய ஜய மங்களம் பவமான சுதுடுபடு பதார விந்தமுலகு நீநாம ரூபமுலகு நித்ய ஜய மங்களம் ராஜீவ நயன த்யாகராஜாதி வினுதமய நீநாம ரூபமுலகு நித்ய ஜய மங்களம்.
I'm sure that all of you enjoyed this literally roller coaster ride, I would say, that we took you through in this thematic presentation on mudras in music compositions. There are so many things to be learned, understood, and appreciated in our Carnatic music. So the next time you go to a concert, don't just think about a composition in terms of what is the raga, and once you find the raga, you are happy and contented. It's not like that. A step further, if we could identify the composer of the composition, like we have given you all the mudras, the different raga mudra, the vagekara mudra, and everything we have shared with you today. So keeping all this in mind, if we try to identify the composer, it gives another extra added pleasure, I would say. Identifying the composer, identifying the raga, all this helps us to understand the composition also better in terms of the style of the composer, how he has visualized the whole structure of the composition. So that way we also understand how a Thyagaraja composition is different from a Dikshitar, or a Dikshitar from Shama Shastri, or a Shama Shastri to Papanasham Shivan, and so on. So that way the mudras that we shared here today is going to be definitely a helpful guide for you in future in terms of understanding and appreciating every concert better as well. Thank you very much. Namaskarams.